This is Robert Harper with Virginia Farm Bureau's Grain Division. Glad to bring you the Merchandiser Minute today, Friday, January the 22nd, 2021. Let's start off by looking at how the Chicago futures closed out the week. March corn down 31 cents a bushel this week to close at $5 even. March beans down $1.05 a bushel to close at $13.11. And July wheat down 33 cents a bushel for the week to close at $6.24. A big down week on the futures board. We've known since roughly early December that managed money speculators have come into agricultural commodities for a lot of different reasons. One of them that we've talked a lot about here is betting on inflation coming. How do they bet on that? In this case, they've bet by buying agriculture futures and shorting or selling the dollar futures. They think with more government stimulus on the horizon with the new administration, they're betting that that's coming, that the value of the dollar will go lower to hide the inflation, and anything sold in dollars will go higher. That trend started again in a big way back in early December, continued right through last week after we got the annual crop report and the quarterly stocks report. But definitely this week we saw over a period of 3 days a typical fund liquidation where they're selling futures contracts they'd already bought to put the profit in the bank. We had a quiet day yesterday, and then today about midway through the trade we saw the funds sell off again. We did see corn futures March and May contract both go limit down today, right on the heels of last week on report day going limit up. So I think the theme and the word for the week is, in agriculture commodity futures, at least corn, wheat, and beans, is volatility. We've seen volatility over the last few weeks, and you as a producer, you have to expect a lot of volatility ahead. Whether it's due to an outside influence like a new president taking office and what he does in his first 100 days there, or whether it's worldwide monetary policy and how that impacts how commodities trade, or even monetary policy for our own Federal Reserve here in the United States. Whatever those outside influences are, they're putting big question marks into the marketplace. And even during the week when we had a presidential inauguration and we had stock market equity futures up, they were clearly telling us that they've got all this factored in. We see the speculator wanting to pull some profits out here at the end of the week. Is it a correction? Have we seen the top? That's the question everybody's asking. Nobody knows. We don't know about South American harvest yet. We still got a few weeks before the combines start rolling down there to clarify what the yield is. We don't know about acres here in the United States for this coming growing season, or weather here. We don't know if the export demand will go higher, go lower, or stay the same. All of these unknown factors will definitely be influencing your futures price. And again, it comes back to sticking close to that marketing plan that you've written. You know what your input costs are. You know where your break even is. You know what you want, what profit you want above your break even. And that's certainly what we're shooting for, every penny that we can get. And continue to stay disciplined, stick to your written plan, and make small sales, incremental sales over time to work for that high average. So a lot going on this week to see the speculators sell off, and obviously at 8 p.m. on Sunday night Eastern, when the market opens back up again, and next week's 5 days of trade. It was a shortened week this week with the holiday on Monday. We're going to greatly anticipate to see what these funds want to do. The fundamentals are still in place. They took us to 6.5 to 7 year highs on the futures board that we saw last week for corn, wheat, and beans, depending on what contract you're looking at. That we saw those last week after that bullish crop report came out. We know what ending stock numbers are. We know how low they are. We know how low the stocks to use ratios numbers are. Those are very bullish numbers that support high price on the futures board, and we're just going to see if the speculator is going to keep betting on it being that way. Some other news this week, the fourth week in a row that the CME has raised margin requirements, this time just for soybeans as they try to handle the volume of trades that are coming into the market. We did see a lot of days this week with intraday reversals. We did see each day this week with a lot of activity in the night session. Those both are really true signs of a bull market, and a market, I would also say, that's being run by the speculator. If you can remember anything I say here this afternoon is number one, we've got a lot of volatility ahead of us, and number two, we know that right now the speculator are driving the futures markets. Argentina did see good amounts of rainfall across a lot of their growing regions. It was impressive to see that in the news this week, in the weather news, because it's been so long since we've seen that. If we take a quick look at USDA export loadings, top destinations this week for corn, Mexico and Japan. Top destinations for beans this week, China and Spain. Wheat was Indonesia and Mexico. And we got a phenomenal weekly export sales report today. And I would also remind each of us that we saw a big flash sales announcement multiple days this week for corn and bean sales, and even 2022 wheat sales, as COVID food insecurity still has end users around the world wanting to lock in bushels, lock in tons, get coverage. We had a phenomenal export sales report today, way above expectation for corn. Mexico and Japan were the top customers, way above expectations for bean sales this week. China and Spain came in 1 and 2. And we just know, we were looking at that report today thinking, wow, the prices haven't got high enough to ration demand. And then at the same time, when we get a great export report, we see the funds want to sell off. So think about that as we go into next week. Know that it is the end of the month. Obviously, we'll see how the funds want to position themselves. We're going to be watching for South American weather. The acre talk is fully underway. Will it be 90 million acres of corn in the U.S., 90 million acres of beans, or will we see more of both and acres added? And remember, we're coming into February, and we're going to be looking for that price discovery period for our crop insurance. One last thing. Virginia Farm Bureau sent out an email this week, and I'll talk more about this next week, to get you all to take a survey. You have until March the 12th to do this. It's a survey of farm conservation practices in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. This has been put together by a committee formed up of Extension, NRCS, our Soil and Water District people. If you have any questions about that survey, talk to your Extension agent, your local Soil and Water District folks, or us here at Virginia Farm Bureau. This is Robert. Thank you, and have a good rest of your day.